Hello and welcome back to the Knitting Page channel. If you're new here, my name's Paige and I'm the face behind the Knitting Page. Today I have a regular podcast episode for you where I'm going to talk to you about my finished objects, my works in progress, and any acquisitions that I have. So let's get straight into it. In classic podcaster style, I am wearing one of my finished objects today, and this is the Juma Blouse, and this was a test knit for Knits for Days. I knit this yarn using Holst Garn Tides, which is 70% merino and 30% silk. I held it together because it's fingering weight yarn, and all the Holst Garn fingering weight yarns have a lot of meterage for the weight of yarn, and so this is 287 meters per 50 grams. I worked this off of a cone, and so I wound up the cone in individual cakes, and then I used the outer pull and the center pull from each cake to work up this lovely blouse or cardigan. And I honestly have been wearing it non-stop since I got off my needles. I knit this on 4.5mm needles, and I do think that with blocking it grew a little bit compared to what my swatch was, so it does have a little more positive ease than what the pattern recommended. But regardless, I'm very pleased with the fit of the blouse, and I would really highly recommend this. It was almost done in my last podcast. I only had the finishing of one sleeve to go and doing the hook and eye closures. And so part of this construction is you knit top down. It has a contiguous sleeve shoulder that almost has a saddle-like construction to it, where you do increases on the side to create a nice column of stitches. And then my favorite part was after you split for the sleeves, you keep working the body, and then you have I-cord edging that go all around the entirety of the outer border for this cardigan, or this blouse. There is no ribbing in this blouse. The only finishing details are I-cords on every hem, including the sleeves and the entirety of the cardigan. But you don't actually have to cast off before you do the I-cord. You finish knitting the body of the cardigan, you have your stitches live, and then you go up and you pick up stitches all around the rest of the cardigan before you cast on your stitches to do the I-cord. Now, the only difficulty I ran into with this cardigan was with sewing on the hook and eye closures. And trust me, I love the details of them, but I am by no means a sewist, and my sewing skills are definitely lacking in comparison to my knitting skills. And so I had a lot of difficulty sewing these on. Granted, I didn't look up a tutorial video on how to best sew them on. I thought they were pretty straightforward, and so I started by sewing the top one and the bottom one down the middle, so the middle end, and then put the other two in between because there's 5 hook and eye closures for this front portion of the cardigan. But what I didn't anticipate was the hook and eyes coming undone. And what I mean by that is, well, I guess there's two things. One is that the hooks were fairly loose, and so I had to really make sure I clamped them down so that they weren't just gonna fall off from the eye closure. And then the other thing is that each hook and eye closure has a bottom that looks like this, and I was sewing into them, but I ordered these ones off Amazon, and maybe they're just not the best quality compared to ones that you could get, but the little hooks are not welded to the rest of the piece, and so there's a little gap. And the first time I wore it out, I found that they were slipping out of my stitches, or that I wasn't tying off my thread properly, and so the hook and eye closures kept coming undone. And I've probably replaced every single one since I first sewed it on, because it either got loose, the hook or eye came undone, or the thread I didn't tie properly and it came undone as well. And so now they've been securely on. I've worn it multiple days since I cast it off, and it is one of my favorite pieces that I think I've ever made. I just think that it has a lot of utility in it, and I'm really pleased with the color and the fit. I love the sleeves don't have any decreases in it, which at first I was I don't know how I feel about this, but then once I finished making the blouse, I really do love that it's not a bell sleeve, because it doesn't bell out, but just the wide flowy sleeve I think is really nice, and I think that the hook and eye closure is really simple. It's unlike anything else that I have in my wardrobe, and I've been wearing it all the time. I've been wearing it with trousers, I've worn it to work, I've been wearing it with skirts, with shorts, and I've been wearing it like kind of casually with like a cute pair of like sweatpants shorts, or dressed up to work with like a nice like work skirt. And I've just been so pleased with the ability for it to like be a great piece to fit into my like non-made me wardrobe. And yeah, I would highly recommend the Juma Blouse, and the pattern is out now, so if you do like one, you can knit it yourself. And it wasn't too yarn hungry. I used less than 800 meters of yarn to knit the second size, so it's fairly nice. And her original sample is knit in Line, and so it would be a really great piece for like the summer or the spring or the fall to not have the warmth of wool. And I'm glad that I have it with a wool and silk blend, because I think the silk in the Holsgarn Tides just allows for some really nice drape in this blouse / cardigan. So that was a decent amount of talking, but I do have one other finished project, and this is a project that's not for me, but it's for Mr. Running, and I will go get it and I will try it on to show you how it fits me, because Mr. Running and I are the same size. But I have finished my Lakes Pullover for Mr. Running. Alrighty, so here is the Lakes Pullover for Mr. Running. And I'm really proud of myself for finishing this sweater, because I feel like I really wanted to make both my mom and my dad some handmade pieces, and I just haven't committed to finishing them or even really starting them. My dad also wants the Lakes Pullover, and he has his shoulder pads done for the saddle shoulder, and that's it. And my mom's yarn is still sitting caked up, ready to make her a shawl. But this is the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta, and this is actually it's a woman's pattern, but because of like the oversizedness of the sweater and really just like a simple classic silhouette, I thought that it would make a really great pattern for Mr. Running. It was one that I already had in my pattern library, and I figured that if Mr. Running didn't want it, I could have this lovely sweater, and I will try it on for you to show you what it looks like on. I also know that because of the navy color, it's a little bit difficult to see all the details in it, and I haven't blocked it yet, which is quite funny because I was telling Mr. Running all about blocking, and he keeps telling me, I only finished it last night, but since casting it off, he's been like, you gotta block my sweater so I can fully wear it. You gotta block my sweater so I can fully wear it, which I think is really cute that he's using that language. But this is the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta, and I knit the size extra small in terms of like stitch count and etc. Number of stitches for like the whole like upper portion of the sweater is knit exactly to pattern. What I then customized was the length of the sleeves and the length of the body, and I chose the length that I knit based off of Mr. Running's favorite hoodie. And so I wanted to make sure, because sometimes I forget about how like short I am and how small of a torso that I have, and I'll get him to try on a sweater for size that I've made for myself that to me feels really oversized, and he'll put it on and it's like a crop top on him, and that's not exactly the look that I'm going for with this sweater. And so I took his hoodie and I measured the length of the sleeve, for example, from the underarm to where the rib starts is 50 centimeters based off where his hoodie was, where it wasn't that length given in the pattern. And I knit the body way longer than I would have knit mine. Like right now it's tucked up and under for myself. And overall this was like, I've knit the Lakes Pullover v-neck for myself before, and I really love it. I'm actually going to knit myself a Lakes Pullover regular neck in navy as well, so that Mr. Running and I can have matching sweaters. And I'm going to knit my dad the Lakes Pullover in a gray as well at some point, because I have the yarn and I would like to knit it for him because I think he is going to be a very knit-worthy person. But this is knit with Lana Peruvian Highland wool in their navy colorway. This is a worsted weight yarn, and the sweater is knit on 5mm needles throughout the entirety of the sweater, ribbing included. And at first I was a little hesitant to do the ribbing. Actually, the neck ribbing I did on 3.75mm needles just because I think my 4mm were occupied. Or I did them on 4, but I did some, anyways, I honestly forget what exact size I did the collar on, but I did go down in needle size for the collar. But the ribbing on the sleeves and the hem of the sweater are done 5mm as well, as is the body. And at first I was hesitant about that because I thought that it might like have it flare out, but it hasn't so far. And again, I haven't blocked it, but I also was knitting this on a size like cord that I really shouldn't have been. Like, it was way too small. And so the hem of the sweater is not very stretchy because I think for my tubular cast off, I was pulling it too tight because the stitches were on so tightly because I didn't have enough space to stretch out. The good thing about that is that it's still big enough to go over his body. It's still big enough to go over my body. And that on some of my other pieces, I've had the hem flare out and I don't really like it. And so I'm going to see how it wears over time. I wound up buying more balls of yarn than I needed by like 6. Like, I bought 6 extra balls that I needed. And so I went and was able to return them at the yarn store, which was amazing. I did keep 1 ball just in case I do have to go back and fix the hem, because I do want it to be a piece that's wearable for forever. And I also kept it in case I have to like mend a hole in it or something like that, because I do think this is going to be a sweater that is worn a lot by Mr. Running. It's still like, fall is like slowly encroaching on the summer, and there have been some cool evenings, but like, it's still quite warm to wear a wool sweater. Mr. Running and I are going to Montreal this upcoming weekend for a race. I will be spectating this one, but I'll be watching him. And I'm really glad that I had this cast off in time, because I think it'll be like a nice piece to bring to Montreal. But I'm very pleased with how this turned out. And like I said, I have not blocked it yet, so it's like 99.5% done. I just have to do that last blocking stage to let it relax and like really come into itself. And I'm also hoping that, like, it's funny, one of my knitting friends is like, it's knit with love and Luna, because Luna, our dog, has a very high tendency to shed like crazy because she's a husky, or she's a husky shepherd mix, but her fur has like, it loves this navy wool, and so you can see bits of Luna on this sweater. So I'm hoping that like in the water it might come out, and if not, my plan is to just like, at least for like the first one, go and take tweezers and pick out all the Luna fur and just put it in water so that I can have a nice clean sweater for Mr. Running to wear. But overall, really pleased with it, and like really happy to have this pattern in my wardrobe that is versatile between genders, and it can be more feminine or it can be more masculine. And so if you have a masculine person in your life, you can think about knitting them something like Lakes Pullover, because it is, I think, quite a versatile piece. I did find the Lakes V-neck was a little too deep for my father when I went to make him that one, but the Lakes O-neck, or the Lakes like regular pullover, is really, really lovely. And so I have 2 finished objects, which I have finished like all 3 of my big plans from a couple podcasts ago, which feel really, really good. And I have like limited the amount of cast-ons that I have. I'm trying to work through what's already on my needles while also allowing myself to cast on like a project like here or there. And so with that, I will talk to you about my whips. And so the first whip I have been working on is my Knitlet, which is a reversible camisole. And I talked to you about this in the last video, and this was not on my fall plans, nor was it on my summer plans, because it came out at the very end of summer. But once I saw this piece, I immediately fell in love with it. This piece is extremely versatile, and it can be worn from the front with like the square neck, or from the back with the boat neck. And while going to the mall for back to school this summer, I was looking for some just like good basics, and I wasn't finding anything navy as like a basic tank top that was really speaking to me. The options were either like spaghetti strap or tube top, and I didn't want either for wearing to work. And so this piece popped up on my feed, and it is by Simone Bergh and Tuva Sandok. It's this lovely camisole. They're both fairly small designers, and I thought, why not cast it on? And I also had the yarn already in stash, and so I thought it would make for a good like last minute summer project. And I've come a long way with it. I'm just working on like the finality of the body before I cast off and do the I-cord edging on the armholes and the neckband. This pattern is really lovely because it has decreases. Obviously you could like omit them if you didn't want them, but it does have decreases in the body and also increases to account for like the natural decrease in your waist and the increase of your hips, which I think is something that I haven't done before. I've only done either straight or just decreases, not decreases and then increases again. So I'm curious to see how this will wear. I think the navy colorway is going to be extremely wearable and versatile for my personal style, and I think it's going to be a great layering piece, even like underneath my Juma blouse. I think it would be super cute. I've been really enjoying seeing like the knitted sets with like a knitted cardigan and a knitted top on underneath. Granted, they're using the same color. This won't be in the same color, but I think like the two knitted pieces will be like really nice for like a little me-made outfit. I'm knitting this using, not Sandok yarn, but Drops Bell, and this yarn that, let's see if I still have the tag. Oh, I do. It's called Puno, and it's Winnie Kunka, and it is by Pasquale Yarns, and it's very, very similar to knitting for all of cotton merino, but instead of cotton and merino, it's cotton and baby alpaca. And so it is also fingering weight yarn. It's made in Peru. There is 200 meters for 50 grams, and I'm holding it with Drops Bell in their navy colorway as well to get like this really nice, like thick fabric. It's not too thick where it's like chunky, like it's really thick in the sense of like, you know, it's not going to be see-through and that it's going to hold up well and it's going to be durable, yet also still have some movement with it. So overall, really pleased with it. I think it'll be done in the next couple of days just because I'm getting and gaining some momentum on it, and I am trying to limit myself to like not working on a whole bunch of projects at a time, although I do have some new cast-ons, and I've brought in one other whip back into rotation, which I will talk about right now. The whip that I have brought back into rotation is a little hard to see because it is also using navy fiber and navy yarn, and there's kind of yarn ends all over the place. But this is the Maja Cardigan V-neck by We Made Wardrobe. That was a test that I didn't meet the deadline for just because the end of school in June is just like a crazy banana cuckoo time for any teacher, especially a first year full-time teacher. And I wanted to work on it this summer, but this is made with alpaca mist, which is a very warm yarn. It's going to be incredibly lovely for the fall and winter, but it made for not a great knitting project for the summer when it was really hot. But now that the temperatures have started to cool, I've picked up and started working the double knit button band on this cardigan, and I'm about halfway through the double knit button band before I go and work the sleeves for this cardigan. So this is another piece that won't be on my needles for too much longer once that button band gets done. This is knit using a fingering weight yarn. I'm using Einband by, oh, what's the brand? It's like the same brand of like Let Lopi. Anyways, I'm using Einband and alpaca mist, and it's knit on 6mm needles, so it does work off the needles incredibly fast. And so I think once this like tedious double knit button band is done, which is working up really lovely, it's going to be definitely worth it to go through like the hassle of knitting a double knit button band. But as you know, if you've knit one, it isn't necessarily a time easy commitment. There's also some really lovely details with the like lateral braid in this that you probably won't be able to see super well because of the dark color and the alpaca mist, but the detail is there if you look closely. I've done a tubular cast off on the body of the hem, and again, navy is definitely a theme this fall, and I'm trying to create some navy staples in my wardrobe. So you'll see that I will be making my own Lakes pullover in navy. I'll have this navy cardigan, I have my navy tank top, and I also have another new navy cast on that I will talk to you about in just a moment, which is, it's in the very, very beginning stages, but because I cast off the Lakes pullover, I wanted to start working on my skirt number 1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear in Briggs & Little Midnight, and this random one-of-a-kind colorway that I got in Montreal a couple years ago that's also a navy silk mohair from Espace Tricot in their Bon Tricot line in their Bliss mohair. And skirt number 1 is just a very, very basic all-over stockinette skirt, but there's so many projects on Ravelry, and I feel like every project looks good on every body, and I thought that it would be really nice to have a knitted set and to do it on the skirts knit on 5mm and 5.5mm needles would make for a really quick knit, and it would also get this mohair out of my stash in like a really high utility way where I don't necessarily think I'd be able to get like the same wear or usage out of something if it was in a sweater or a top, for example. And so putting it in the skirt, I'll use up probably almost all of the mohair. I'll get a piece that can go with my Lakes pullover, and maybe for the time being Mr. Running's Lakes pullover, and it's going to be a nice stockinette piece to work on once you'll see that I have some other textured knits that will get started for this upcoming fall. And so I really want to knit myself a knitted skirt. I wore my I have a pair of shorts that I'm blanking on the name of right now, but I'll put the name on the screen. But I wore these cotton shorts that I made a couple summers ago a lot this summer, and it's made me think about like knitted pants and knitted bottoms, and I think having a lovely knitted skirt will be nice to wear in the fall and winter, and just having like a matching set I think is going to be really nice for days where I don't really think about, or I don't really want to think about what I'm going to wear. Being able to easily pop something on my body and have it all look cohesive I think will look really great. And so I decided to cast on skirt number 1, and I'm actually thinking of knitting myself one off gauge using the Holskarn Tides to match my Juma Blouse, because I also think that if I get a lot of wear out of this navy one, I think having it in a merino silk blend that also matches this blouse would be really great. And I did mention that I knit this blouse using a Holskarn cone, which is a 500 gram cone, and I used 275 meters, which was just under 1600 meters of yarn held, but that was held double. And so what's left is just over 1200 meters of yarn. And so I think I will be able to get a skirt out of that yarn holding the yarn double again. And I think that that would just be really nice to wear and have like another matching set, because I think matching sets are really timeless. I also think they're like relatively on trend right now, but I think you can't really go wrong with having a cohesive like navy skirt, navy jumper, gray cardigan, gray skirt combo. Like they're just both very basic colors that I think will get a lot of wear out of, whether like a standalone piece or together in a set. And so I did like literally just cast on the skirt number 1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It does begin with a provisional cast on, which I wasn't entirely sure I was going to do, and then I decided I was going to knit it as said in the pattern for at least the first time around. Sometimes I will go and pick up stitches, but I think with like the dark navy yarn, it might be nice to have the provisional cast on, but I do just find it takes a little bit longer to get going because you're doing a crochet chain and then you have to go up and pick up all the stitches for the loop. The other thing is I really love Woozy by Celine and her channel, and I know she has knit skirt number 1 and that she went a size up, and I just thought that I like the way her skirt fits on her, and so I'm going a size up and knitting the medium as well, just so that there is a bit more flow and like looseness on the skirt, and that it's not like super tight around my butt. Was my main concern, so that I really don't want it to be see-through, this skirt. And so going up a size I think would just allow for a little more ease rather than negative ease that could just make for something a little more versatile and work appropriate. So this is my plan for the skirt number 1. Obviously it's in its infancy right now, but I think it's one piece that will go off the needles really quickly because it isn't super yarn hungry and it's knit at a large gauge, so it shouldn't take any time at all. Alrighty, I have one other new cast on for you, and that is my funky scarf. So a couple weeks ago I picked up my 52 weeks of easy knits by L'Année magazine, and in it was 52 patterns of easy knits, but one of the patterns was the Iloisa, which is a pattern I talked about in my 15 fun fall knits. If you haven't watched that already, it's just 15 patterns that I think will add some joy and brightness to your fall. But one of the patterns in that book is the Iloisa, which is this giant scarf that has all of her color work on it. It's knit on, I think I'm knitting on 6.5mm needles. They're my they're my Leica needles that have been worked a lot so that the printing has come off the edging, but I'm pretty sure it's 6.5mm needles. And I did modify the pattern to use less stitches than what's written for, just for time's sake and yarn management sake. The pattern has like all over cohesive color story that I decided not to go for because I am trying to just use up scrap yarn. And so the pattern works by doing these like sections of different colorwork patterns, and so I'm not very far into it. I got really excited and cast it on, and it's been actually really nice just to get some of these like random 1 and 2 skeins out of my stash in this like super funky silly pattern that and will have these like crazy pom-poms on at the end, and you can see like I am working slightly different. Like this is a baby llama yarn that's like technically like an Aran or like a bulky weight, and then I do have some like worsted down here, so there's like a bit of a difference in the colorwork sections versus this like all over stockinette section that I'll go up and add baubles to at the end, which I haven't done baubles before, but I think it's just going to be something really fun to work on and pick up this fall when I feel like working on something fun and colorful, or I feel like doing some color work. I love that this scarf is knit like entirely in the round, because I just think I don't mind back and forth knitting, but in a scarf I'm not really like, that doesn't seem really appealing to me right now. And I think I knit like my Fneed last year and I get a lot of wear out of it and I love it a lot, and so having this like more structured colorwork pattern I think is also going to be great. And my Fneed was knit in the round and I really loved working it up, and so this is one where like I haven't worked on it in a couple of days, but I think it will be fun to like work a little colorwork section and then take a break, but just have something like loud and fun on my needles. And it's also getting rid of a lot of scrap yarns and putting them into like a high utility piece such as a scarf that I'm really pleased with. So those are all my whips for today. I have one acquisition and I'm looking for the swatch. I got 14 balls of Arauma Fivel, which is a worsted weight yarn, and I got it in their color 4078, which is this very light gray, almost white colorway. And this is going to be a test knit for Gregoria Fibers, and it's like the sister sweater to the Beatrix cardigan, which I have always really loved, and I do plan to make it. But this is the sweater, and again, I'm blanking on the name, but I will put the name on the screen because it isn't just the Beatrix sweater. She wanted to have like its own name to highlight, and I haven't received the pattern yet. I just got confirmation that I will be test knitting it, and I wanted to make sure that I'm knitting this all over textured sweater in a color that is timeless and that I'm really gonna love. And so, talking about staples, I don't have anything light gray, almost white as a sweater in my wardrobe, and I think that there's something really classic about an all over light colored sweater to have for the fall and winter. And so I went to my local yarn store, which just got Rama Fivel in, and I picked up 14 balls of this yarn. And I don't know if it's the exact same stitch pattern, but I do have the Beatrix cardigan. And so I did this like waffle texture, which I'll come up and show you, for the yarn. And I started out, you can see my swatch is like a little wonky. It's because I started out on 4mm needles and then I went up to a 5, and I still have to block this, but it's gonna be somewhere either 4, 4.5, or 5, depending on if this is even the right stitch pattern. But I was just so excited to work up the yarn, and I think it's gonna make such a great sweater. And it's oversized. I think it's a drop shoulder as well, or like it's a saddle shoulder. Anyways, I'll find out more about the pattern as it comes out, because she doesn't even have a finished sample of it right now. But once I get the pattern, this knit is going to become my priority knit, because it is a relatively tight deadline for a sweater, and it is all over texture. I am a fairly quick knitter. It's funny, actually the other day I was knitting with a friend, and I decided to see like how fast I can knit, and I can knit, including like a decreased stitch, I can do like 55 stitches a minute of stockinette. And so it is fairly quick, which means I can work like a sleeve round, and for my size on like thicker needles, about 1 round a minute, so the sleeves work up really quickly. This is not plain stockinette. It has this really funky stitch pattern, which is a little more time consuming than just stockinette. But even in this swatch, my first rounds took a long time, and I was able to find a technique for the later rounds that was much quicker. And so I'm very excited about having this in my wardrobe, because I feel like I've like dreamt of a sweater like this for a long time, and having it in this like light colorway where the stitch definition isn't going to get washed away by something dark, I think will be very timeless and very beautiful. And I've never test knit for Gregoria fibers before, and so I debated about whether or not I should even apply to it, because sometimes I apply to test knits when I really shouldn't. But I think this is one where I really want the finished object, and I went out and like treated myself to new yarn for like the start of the school year, and I'm excited to get going on it whenever I get the pattern. And so that is my one and only acquisition, and like my next plan as I finish up some of these stockinette pieces that I have. If I really need a break from something textured where this will be my priority knit, I will go to my stockinette pieces, and then once this is finished, I'll go and get going again on my waffle loop dress. So that is all for today. I would love to hear what you have been working on this video, and until next time, happy knitting. Goodbye!